Hello.
Hello, it's Mr. Servon.
Hi, Pete. This is Bill Spinarelli.
Oh, how are you?
I'm alive.
Good. Did they not acknowledge you yet?
No, not yet.
Okay, that's funny. I guess we're the only two on here.
I
How you
guess.
doing, Mr. Servon?
Oh, good afternoon. I guess it's evening by now.
Yep.
How do we mute ourselves? This is Denise.
Hi.
Hi, Denise.
Hi.
Bill Spinarelli.
Oh, no. I'm on now.
Okay.
So how do we mute ourselves, gentlemen?
Should be a mute button on your phone.
On your phone, yeah.
Mute on your phone, or you
Yeah, I
can
can't.
press *6 to mute yourself.
Star 6?
Yeah, *6. And if you can just do me a
Okay,
favor,
thank
Miss
you.
Kircher, and just hit the pound button. Thank you. We have a caller on last four digits is 3517.
Yeah, Bill Spinarelli. How you doing?
How you doing, Mrs. Spanarelli? We're having a little bit of a hard time hearing you. Could you move closer to your phone?
How about that? Any better?
A little bit better.
Is that any better?
Yep, that's okay.
Okay.
When will I be able to get onto the WebEx?
Well, we're getting ready to launch it right now.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
conference recording has been turned on.
It's now 6:30. I'd like to call to order the Regional Planning Commission public hearing for Thursday, October the 1st. And as we always do, we're going to have the Pledge of Allegiance. I'll ask Mr. Peterman to lead us in the pledge. Thank you, Mr. Peterman. And as customary, I'll ask you if you have cell phones or any other electronic devices that you either turn them off or make sure they're on vibrate so they won't interfere with our meeting. Sir, I'll now ask you to do the roll call and determination of quorum.
Mr. Peterman?
Here.
Mr. Servon?
Here.
Mrs. Karcher?
Here.
Mr. Mills?
Here.
Mr. Spanarelli?
Here.
Mr. Davis?
Here.
Mr. Jester?
Here.
So you have 7 present. You do have a quorum.
Thank you very much. You all have the agenda in front of you. If there's no changes or anything to the agenda, I ask for a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Mr. Peterman?
Yes.
Mr. Servon?
Yes.
Mrs. Karcher?
Yes.
Mr. Mills?
Yes.
Mr. Spanarelli?
Yes.
Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. Jester?
Yes.
So you have 7 yeas in favor of approving tonight's agenda.
I thank you once again, and we'll come right back to you for the introduction and public hearing instructions.
Thank you. This public hearing is being conducted for the purpose of giving the citizens of the county the opportunity to present testimony on applications before the Regional Planning Commission. Everyone will have a chance to speak. All statements are to be made from the podium at the front of the room, or if someone is on the conference call, please press star 1 to be recognized. All testimony given shall be sworn or affirmed. For the record, please give your name and address. Copies of any written statements or exhibits used during the hearing should be presented for identification and inclusion in the record. The record will remain open for 2 business days following tonight's hearing. For each application before the commission, the chairman will introduce the application. Then the applicant or representative will be given 15 minutes to present the application. Then those in favor of the application will be allotted 5 minutes each to speak. Then those opposed to the application will be allotted 5 minutes each to speak. When everyone has had an opportunity to give testimony, the hearing on the application will be closed. No decision will be made by the Planning Commission tonight. The Commission will hold a public business meeting next Thursday, October 8th, at 6:30 p.m., at which time it will make a decision on the applications heard tonight. All information of record will be considered, and a common vote of 4 members of the Commission is required to make a decision. Anyone may attend the business meeting, but no new testimony will be received. The public notice of this hearing was published on September 11th, 2020 in the Delaware State News. The Kent County Levy Court will hear these applications on Tuesday, October 27th, 2020 at 7 p.m. Unless tabled by the Commission or withdrawn prior to the Levy Court hearing, the Levy Court also meets in this room. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Sarah. We'll now get into the public hearing. The first one on the agenda tonight for the public hearing is application title C-20-08. Applicant is Jason Raxness, 111 Lovers Lane, Felton, Delaware, 19943. Owner is Jason and Angela Rackness, 111 Lovers Lane, Felton, Delaware, 19943. The property address is actually at 177 Plumbers Lane, Harrington, Delaware, 19952. The comprehensive plan map designation is low-density residential. The present zoning district is AR, Agricultural Residential District. Relation to the growth zone is outside. Present use is residential/agriculture. Proposed use is residential/school bus parking. Proposed building size is 3,240 square feet. Water is on-site water is on-site well, sewer is on-site septic. Levy Court District is the 6th, Mr. Howe. School District is Lake Forest. Fire District is Station 48 Felton Community Fire Company. And the area is 4.2 acres west of the intersection of Cedar Grove Church Road on Plumbers Lane, County Road 269, west of the town of Felton. Is there someone here to represent this application? Please come to the podium and you either be sworn or affirmed by our attorney. Give your name and address.
Jason Raxness, 111 Lovers Lane, Harrington, or Felton, Delaware.
Sir, do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
You might want to pull the mic up by because it's hard to hear through these
I got you.
masks and all. So go ahead with your presentation. You're right in my neck of the woods.
Yeah, we have a school bus business, and it's time to stop paying rent for somebody else and move the business to my own personal property. So that's what I'm trying to do. Other than that, that's pretty much all I got.
And you're aware of all the staff, what they said in your comments and all, and how you have to park the buses, correct?
Correct.
Does anybody on the commission, either on the phone line or here in person, have any questions of this applicant? Mr. Mills.
I'll make a comment. I know this gentleman, know him very well. Probably one of the best Lake Forest contractors there is in the Lake Forest School District. As you all know, on March the 1st, all school buses were shut down in the state of Delaware. They left contractors with something they didn't know what to do. The DOE did come along and say that they would pay a portion of their contracts as long as they paid the drivers, and the drivers didn't have to apply for unemployment. They did that. This gentleman is just trying to save some money. He had to revise things. He was paying rent in a Harrington operation, which was central for him for the buses to run, but he was paying a high rate of rent. He had to stop, so he had to do something different. And I think he's trying to do is just trying to save money in order to continue going and serve the Lake Forest School District in a manner that he's always been used to serving. Thank you.
Any other commissioners have anything to say? Mr. Peterman?
You building a house on that property too?
Correct. Yeah, it's currently under construction.
Okay. And where's the buses going to be in relation to that? Closer to the road or?
Further back.
Okay, so they're going to be in back of the new proposed house. You won't see that from the road.
No, I
And
mean,
there's not going to be no maintenance done at this property at all on your buses?
other than
Unless
maybe
you
a,
blow the tire up or
Yeah.
wash it or something?
maybe a headlight bulb or something, but
Okay, but you're not doing
Everything's
no
done
motor
off-site.
work or
no, sir.
drivetrain work?
Nope.
Okay. And how many buses is there?
I have a total of 10.
10?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other commissioners here or on the phone? Mark, does anybody paging in? Thank you.
All of the commissioners online they can freely talk. They're open.
Okay, thank you for that. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else here in favor of this project and would like to speak? Anybody else in favor? Third and final call for anybody else in favor of this project and would like to speak. Now we'll go for the opposition. Is there anybody here opposed to this project? Anybody opposed to this project? Third and final call. Anybody opposed? Then this project is closed for tonight and we have somebody on the phone?
I'd just like to mention if there's anyone that's online and would like to speak, please press *1 so we can recognize you.
Are we getting anybody? Okay, then this project for tonight is closed. The second project on our agenda tonight on the ordinance/application number and name is LC 20-09/CZ-20-03 Ching LLC. Applicant owner is Ching LLC, care of Stephen Martin, 1973 Bay Road, Milford, Delaware, 19963. Other contact is Panani Associates, care of Greg Richelle, professional landscape architect, 121 Continental Drive, Suite 207, Newark, Delaware, 19713. Present zoning, comprehensive map designation is AR, agriculture residential, low density residential. Proposed zoning is comprehensive plan map designation is BG, business general, highway commercial. Relation to the gross zone is inside. Total site of the area is 4.55 acres. Levy Court District is the 4th. Mr. Buxton. School District is Milford. Fire District is Station 42, Milford Fire Department. Area and location. 3 contiguous parcels totaling 4.55 plus or minus acres, located at the intersection of Bay Road, Delaware Route 1, and Old Cemetery Road, County Road 402, north of Milford. Is there somebody here to represent this project? Either in person or on the phone.
Yes, this is Greg Rischel with Pannoni Associates, 121 Continental Drive, Suite 207, Newark, Delaware.
Sir, excuse me. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Proceed.
Thanks, sir. Go ahead with your presentation.
As the owner applicant, Mr. Martin respectfully is requesting to change the zoning on the 3 contiguous parcels from AR zoning to BG zoning. The applicant has a larger planned development opportunities on surrounding properties. These parcels are inside the growth zone, as mentioned, and they are surrounded to the north, south, and east by commercial zoning. On the site exists today a existing billboard, which the applicant plans to reconstruct and relocate, given that that change would not be considered an existing non-conforming use anymore. Billboards are not allowed in the AR district, although allowed in the BG district. Given that we've received the staff recommendation report on the review of the project and its denial, a recommendation for denial, we disagree with that position. Given the state investment of $278 million in the north and south overpasses, or the overpasses north and south of the site, which supports growth in the area, and that's why there's envisioned to be additional growth here. The applicant is considering future development plans. Rezoning would afford the applicant an opportunity to develop these parcels in a more appropriate fashion consistent with surrounding zoning. We've presented plans to DelDOT and met with them and are currently engaged in a traffic impact study for the planned projects. And DelDOT has indicated their desires to, in concert with their SR1 corridor improvement capacity program, to develop service road and intersection improvements as part of a future development that would impact these properties and go through them, and are encouraging the development to take that under consideration. Low density residential, as it's currently zoned, would not be a good fit with the realignment of those roads and could be a challenge. There's opportunity here to support on these parcels those adjacent planned developments. We are also aware of the fact of a recent levy court approval of a property adjacent or near the site, just to the north and east, that is outside of the growth zone and was converted from a more restrictive AC zoning to BG.
You are aware that the plus report is also negative on behalf of you, that it said it's not in the development area, and it's not, shouldn't be used for economic development at this time. Is that correct? You read that?
Yes, we have received the plus report and its recommendation for denial. We disagree with that position as well for many of the reasons I just previously stated. Given the investment in the transportation infrastructure in the area, the applicant feels that this is an area that's supportive of growth, and there are other planned applications of other commercial properties in the area. And again, as stated, this would support adjacent proposed uses that are already zoned commercially or other or for potential recreational use.
Do you have anything else you'd like to say, or can I open it up for questions?
I do not. If the owner applicant who's on the phone or on the web wants to add anything.
Yeah, go ahead with the other applicant on the phone, if you're there, please.
Please press star 1 on the phone if you want to be recognized.
Good morning, or good afternoon, this is Steve Martin.
Sir, what's your address?
1973 Bay Road, Milford, Delaware.
You swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Proceed.
Go right ahead, sir.
Yeah, good evening. This parcel is located in between parcels that I currently own and are in the planning stage of the redevelopment. We have a commercial area just to the north of this parcel. I do own my office building, currently Laser Tone Business Systems, just south of this parcel that we're looking for the rezoning. And I also own the property to the west, which is zoned AR at this point. We're looking to rezone this parcel as part of a bigger development and working very closely with DelDOT on the road infrastructure to support these projects in the best way that they seem fit. Also, trying to make sure that we're working with all agencies on the project at hand, and also working hand in hand with all the questions that were proposed as recommendations from the staff. So we do notice, one of the denial questions was about the, abundant amount of commercial space in this area. And we have been in the process. We are in our final phases of traffic study with DelDOT right now. We've been working diligently through COVID and trying to move this project as fast as possible. But of course, we've all been slowed down due to COVID issues. So this is, the final phase of what we are working the plus panel with our development, and we're hoping that since we are inside the growth zone, that the board can see, past the recommendations and hope to agree with, our change in zoning.
All right, thank you, sir. Do you have anything else? Either of you gentlemen have anything else before I open it up for questions?
I do not.
Do not.
Okay, I'll open it up to commissioners, either here or on. Mr. Mills, you have a question? Go ahead.
Yeah, one question I have is the fact that we've heard here tonight all the ones that you have dealt with on what you're going to do in the land north of you is all in the BGA area. What we haven't heard here tonight is all the agricultural land that represented around that piece of property. There's approximately 800 to 900 acres that joins that parcel there that we're speaking of here tonight. And most of that land right there that we see is on the map that I'm looking at here in front of me is in wetlands. All the rest of that ravine, all through that woods there, is a benefit to all that agriculture land around there as far as drainage. And if you had seen the water that we've had in the last week and the week before, 5 inches of rain and 3 inches just night before last, that plays a vital role, that piece of property all through there, all that land right through there, that wooded land plays a vital part in draining that soil, that land, so water doesn't lay on it. All that wooded land right there is what you call a natural filtration for the water that leaves those farms that heads towards Delaware Bay. And I haven't heard anything in your proposal tonight that you're mentioning. What are you going to do about that?
Would either of you gentlemen like to answer his question?
Greg, do you want to go first?
Sure. So a majority of the woods and the wetlands as you can see on the screen, to the north and west is not owned by the applicant. No plans there. Wetlands in the stream area are not proposed to be disturbed in any way other than what DelDOT may ask or require with specific improvements that they're requesting or requiring as part of any future corridor capacity improvements. The remainder of the property that you can see there on the screen that has what appears, mixture of trees and some open areas with some trails running through it. The applicant is considering a future campground use of that site, which would be a mix of drive-in camper hookup spaces where people could come with an RV or a pull-behind trailer, and also luxury rental cabins, or kind of cabiminiums as they're referred to, with some supporting accessory uses for the users of the site, such as a bathhouse, small recreational building, gathering area for people using the campground, office, store, those types of things that would be typically associated with that type of facility. Steve, if you have anything else you'd like to add.
Yes, the wetlands part of the project is going to be well protected, and it is part of the nature part of what we're offering when people do come and stay in the facility. We're trying to keep all the trees and all of the surrounding area intact as much as possible, because when people do come to an area like this, they want to be in nature, and that's one of the big things that we're trying to minimize any impact into the nature part of it, so it's protected. So the parcels that we're looking at, very few pieces of that parcel is in part of our plan. None of the trees in the back nor the wetlands are going to be disturbed as part of the plan that we have already put together as the rough draft.
Thank you, gentlemen. Does that answer your question, Mr. Mills? Okay. Mr. Peterman, he has a question. Now, then, think Mr. Davis.
So
go ahead.
what kind of storage are you going to have there? You're going to be on county storage? You're going to you can't have septic systems there at wetland area, correct? What kind of storage would you have for the sewer to be handled for the campers if that went your way?
We've applied to the Canton County Sewer District as of this time. We've already been issued EDUs that we can purchase as part of this project. and we would do the sewer extension down to this point.
But you don't know if you're going to be on a Kent County sewer yet? Is that what you said?
No, we do. We already paid our application fee, and we worked with I think his name is Brian, and we have received a letter back from Kent County Sewer District.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Davis?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do have several questions. I hope people can understand me because it's mass and I don't get fogged up here. But I do have several questions and ask that you indulge in my time with this. One of the questions that I do have, in the letter sent to the county dated 9/17/2020, DelDOT made the statement that you were rezoning 4.55 acres on Cemetery Road, and they had down billboard / future commercial. I'd like to know what you plan on putting there.
Greg, you want to handle that?
Yep. The applicant is intending to construct uses that would fit within, they are constrained sites, they're not very large, small uses that would support the adjacent campground. This would be something of the nature of like an office, store, general store, and possibly a restaurant, tavern type facility that's intended to work in concert with the adjacent campground as an amenity.
Well, I know you're familiar with the 20% thing about when you destroy wetlands, it goes up to 20%. If you put paving, now you're talking about putting stores in there, and you're talking about putting other businesses in there. And we're not sure at this point, and I know this is not a site plan review, but I'm a little concerned that you come in here and you're not really prepared to tell us exactly what you're going to do until we ask you. So I'm the guy who asked the question, so it sounds to me like you're going to put some type of small store, or whatever store that may be. You're going to put a billboard down there. You got 4.5 acres. Most of that land is going to be ate up with blacktop. I don't think you're going to be putting just dirt in there. So I have a concern about that. So I'd like to move on down to the next issue. I looked at your drawing that you had submitted that was dated, completed 21 September 2017. I looked at it very closely, and the first thing that popped out, I noticed that in the site plan, there were several pieces of property of unknown owners. Now, one of the deeds I pulled, I spent 3 hours pulling the deeds on all those properties that originally belonged to a guy by the name of John Sharp. Mr. Shari purchased that property in 1985, and it's currently in a trust fund, and I got a lot of information from that. As I see it, when Mr. Shari purchased that property, let me get ahead of myself. Let me answer that question. Have you currently purchased that Shari property, that 5.5 acres, or you currently have that pending?
Which parcel would that be?
The whole 5 acres that Bill Shari owned.
I own 2 of the parcels that Mr. Shari owned, which is the 1 acre and the 1.6 acres of wooded land, known as identification 0144.03 and 01-67.00 from Mr. Shari.
Good. Now you've asked a question for me, which is going to be the critical question for me. Having read the deeds, I searched those deeds back to 1921. I happen to know that man when I was a little boy, over 50 years ago. I'm not going to tell you my age. but his name was John A. Sharp. And John Sharp got that lady, and purchased that from another lady, and that property was obtained in 1921. What I find so interesting about it is that the deeds I've read, it states, and I'll be happy to read them to you, but I don't think it's necessary. I will read the bottom paragraph. Okay, the deed that Mr. Sari got in 1985, and his tax map at that time only addressed lot 44, 43, and 4302, and 4303 itself. But what I picked up in this deed, it says on the south side lands of the unknown ownership, and on the west of lands of unknown owners, and lands now or late of parcels being more particularly described as follows. So, it raises a question to me, since you have applied for rezoning for lot number 67, and two deeds say that that property is unknown owners. I did some further research, and I found out that in 2017, you created a deed from Ching LLC to Ching LLC. That basically means that you put yourself down as the owner, and you made yourself the owner. So my question to you is, I want to know where you got that land from, how you got a hold of that land in 2017. You went to Smith to Rodriguez. I have a copy of the deed, and I think there's questions about the deed itself, about the meets and bounds and things like that. I want to know how you obtained that and why did you do that. And now you're in here applying for a application for rezoning. That's something, in my opinion, doesn't appear to be even your ownership. Thank you. I'd like to have that answer.
Thank you, Mr. Davis, for that. The 1.66 acres of wooded area of unknown ownership is completely all wetlands. It is useless to anyone else, and through the attorney, my attorney, Crystal Carey, I went to her and asked her how I can acquire this property. She filed all legal paperwork to do it per the state code, and she took care of everything at that point in 2017. So I have to, that's up to the attorney to answer that question. I cannot answer it because I am not an attorney on that, but I have to trust, the attorney that I hired to take care of that piece of property.
Well, my experience is when there's a piece of property that's unknown who owns it, if a person pays the taxes and takes care of it for 20 years, they can apply to the Delaware Chancery Court and petition to get a deed to the property. The court requires that is put in the public newspaper, and I know it hadn't been 20 years because you just did this in 2017. I don't know what you told the attorney, but in my judgment, you don't own that property. Now, the one reason you want that property, if I'm correct, and correct me if I'm wrong, that is a link to the parcel that you own in the back, where that campground is. And that you want a connecting route, because I read your DelDOT report, what you plan on doing. So by getting that piece of property that you never owned to begin with, you just go up there and now use the excuse that that's what your attorney did. Well, a lot of attorneys take some meets and bounds and they create a thing. And I noticed on the deed, you never requested a title search, a deed search, and you end up with something that really, in my judgment, and you can correct me if I'm wrong and prove I'm wrong, be fine. You don't even own that property. You own it illegally. You actually went down there and you got a piece of property that you saw nobody owned it, and you took advantage of it to create two parcels together, one of which would be the 4.5, and in addition to the other one, which would give you the right of way to go back there. Now, am I right or am I wrong?
I would, I don't know who's right or wrong. I went and hired an attorney to do the proper acquisition of a piece of property. She explained to me what has to be done. I paid her to do it, and I have to rely on the attorney that she, as you know, would do things according to the Delaware law. So as far as I know, if no one owned the property, and we're not building on the property anyway, if no one owned a property and you go in and walk into an attorney's office and you hand them money to do something and they say they can do it and they get it done, I have to rely on counsel. I can't make that decision. So if counsel says they can get it done and I paid them to do it, I just have to assume that everything was done correctly and to the fullest extent of the Delaware law.
Well, I think we need to stop passing the buck. The buck is that you know that somebody didn't own that property, or there was a question about the ownership of the property. And I don't know what you told the attorney because I wasn't there. But I'm quite reasonably certain that you knew that that was a piece of unknown property and you jumped on board to get it, to have a continuation of property from Cemetery Road over to that campsite, and you even told DelDOT that you wanted to put a golf cart in there. I've read all these reports. I've read them 3 or 4 times. That's number one issue. So I'm not too pleased with your response on that. You're basically saying you don't know. You also say, your engineer says, when I read the state comments about their recommendations, I find it very disturbing. I get remarks, or there's remarks in this report that says we'll take it under consideration. When the state asks you to do something to protect our natural resources, you either do it or you don't get approved. So I'm not very happy with the engineers on the phone. I think that's a short answer, and I don't think that's right. Now, I wasn't going to bring this up tonight. I didn't want to get into the road issue, but you brought it up first. Now, as I understand it, and it's now connected to this application because you brought it up. I didn't. There is a proposed plan for Medding Seafood all the way down through those farms, down to your point of location where you plan on putting a big development and spending a lot of money. The question is, who's going to pay for that road? Are you expecting Delaware? Are you going to pay for it out of your pocket? 2 miles of roadway, because I've been down there and measured it. Not only that, I've got a copy of that plan. And DelDOT has met with you about this service road. And you're getting into a lot of areas down there that those people don't like, and I joined with them. You're getting through farmland, you're getting in ag land preservation property, and you're going to have a nice fight on your hand when you get ready, if they do that. By putting that road down there, the state of Delaware, or you, is going to spend millions of dollars to accommodate one person. That's Ching, LEC, and Mr. Martin. There's no plans down there for any development for commercial. It's outside the comprehensive land use plan. And you've jumped on board because the county and the state, everybody's working together for Delaware Turf to create what we call a master plan. And the master plan is designed to create businesses that would support the Delaware Turf, which is a great process. What you want to do down there would be a great thing to have up next to the Delaware Turf. But you go 2 miles away, and you go down there and you purchase a lot of this land and wetland. And while I'm talking about the wetland, probably at least 1/3, maybe 2/3 is in the water recharge area. The water recharge area is exactly what Mr. Mills is talking about. And then in that particular site, it says it's excellent recharge. The groundwater gets filtrated, it goes into that blue line ditch, and from the ditch, it goes down to the Mississippi River. And if we don't protect these recharge areas, our water quality is going to go down the tube. So you have a piece of land now. I have no documentation from the Corps of Army Engineers what can be done there. But I've been told that you want to put like a bridge or go through that wetlands up to that trailer park, the camping grounds. That's not right. That's wrong to do that. And secondly, when you talk about the road, the service road, that cemetery road, when I was a little boy, was a dirt road. It's got to be built up to current standards of DelDOT to accommodate the amount of traffic should this thing be passed down on that thing. That cemetery road cannot be used in its current condition. So are you going to pay for that, or are you going to ask the Delaware taxpayers to pay for it? Are you planning on paying for all that road work? I can't hear you.
Mr. Davis, Steve Martin. I don't know of any plan at all about a service road going up to the sports complex. I don't know where that came from.
You just got done saying DelDOT. You talked to DelDOT about it.
I spoke to DelDOT about the improving the interchange for Old Cemetery Road, and we have worked with DelDOT to make Old Cemetery Road extremely safer than it is today. We have not talked about any service roads to the sports complex. We have not suggested any service complex. And the documentation I have not seen anything on the DelDOT website about any service road. And
I'm sorry
my engineers today.
I'm sorry to break into you, but I talked to DelDOT myself, and you did have a meeting with DelDOT. The only way they could accommodate you and protect the corridor preservation program was to put a service road, and you did have a meeting with DelDOT. I talked to them as of yesterday, and that service road is coming down through all those properties, and you own most of them. It comes down, and then there's going to be a service road that's going to go around by Cardadia Road, which means all them people have to go Cardadia Road down to Tub Mill Pond Road, make a left on Churchill Road, and come back to Hertrick. And that's basically nonsense. But I'm more concerned about what's going to happen to those farmlands down there. And so I don't believe what you just said. I talked to DelDOT. The man told me that you've been up there. So anyhow, we'll move on with that issue, because that's another separate whole issue. Beg pardon?
Two parcels. Mr. Davis?
Yes.
I own two parcels there. I cannot make a service road from my parcels up to the sports complex because I do not own the parcel that is north of me. You have the shed building that owns parcels. You have Medding Seafood that owns parcels. I do not own those parcels. I don't know where you got that information from, because my engineers have looked for that information on DelDOT's website, and we discussed it about an hour ago. I said, where is this coming up? And we have not seen any of it on DelDOT website. So,
well, I have a copy of the plan. It's a plan. It's a draft, and there's been no funding for it. But they have actually got a draft showing that there's a road coming from Medding Seafood down through the Gates property on down, and the property that you currently own, with the exception of that farmhouse, that's where I was raised at. And I know that land is about as better than anybody in this room. And I know all about that property you want to develop down there on Cemetery Road. So anyhow, it's on the plan book. You go to DelDOT and ask them to send you a copy of it. It's a draft. It's for discussion. But I was told, and when you look at it, there's no proposed businesses on the service road. It's only going to accommodate one person. That's Ching LEC and Mr. Steve Martin. So thank you, Mr. President. I'm sorry it took so long, but I had to ask those questions. Thank you.
Well, I just want to remind the commission that the only thing we're talking about tonight is these 3 parcels here. So we don't need to get into accusation. And Mr. Davis, I appreciate your knowledge on the area. And Mr. Rochelle, I appreciate your going along with Mr. Davis. But all these other issues are something that might become before us later on. But tonight we're dealing with these 3 parcels alone. So does anybody else on the commission have any other questions? Or anybody online?
Mr. Jester? It's
Yes.
Denise.
Go ahead, Denise.
Okay. I've appreciated everything that's been said before. It got into far more explanation than I was prepared to ask because I didn't know enough to ask. But my question, and it's probably staff that might be able to answer this too, after I read what it says about the amount of wetlands and blue line stream and such, just on this 4.55 acres, my question is how much could reasonably be used to develop?
Commissioner Karcher,
I can answer that.
Okay.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to defer to the designer. Without seeing a plan, I can't tell you how much they are willing to engineer the site.
I guess my question is, if there was so much that's restricted for development, I mean, and just looking at what's on the board here, it doesn't look like much. And I've been listening very carefully, but certainly the first presentation by the applicants, I was under the impression they were talking about campsites on this 4.55 acres. Now that we've gotten into further discussion, I find out it's not part of the 4.55 acres, that it's connected to it. So that, at least for me, was a very confusing discussion in the beginning. And I think the other thing that all of us have to consider is that I, for one, when I am dealing with the rezoning, I don't think about what someone tells me is going to go there because of the new rezoning. I think about all the different things that could go there because of the new rezoning. So anyone that can answer any of my questions, I would appreciate.
This is Greg Rischel, Pannoni. I'll answer your initial question about the usability of the 3 parcels and how much is impacted. Primarily the parcel to the rear, which was discussed in earlier conversation about questionable ownership, is entirely contained in wetlands, delineated wetlands and stream, which and has associated buffers with that, cannot be developed. There's actually the 2 remaining parcels which have residences on them today are limited as well by setbacks from the roads. There is not much developable area that's allowed by zoning on these properties. And that's why the proposed, what ultimately may be proposed there, which is still being fleshed out and not really subject of this conversation, is, not something very intense, given that it is primarily restricted. The real goal here was there is an existing billboard. It's actually 2 side-by-side, single-sided stationary billboards on site today. The applicant would like to reconstruct the billboard and adjust its location to accommodate any future DelDOT improvements and change it to a more modern double-sided billboard, and that change would no longer qualify it as an existing nonconformity. Therefore, billboards are not allowed in the AR zone, but are in the BG. And then just to kind of confirm your understanding, yes, no campsites are proposed or were or currently being considered on these properties, only potentially supporting uses or uses on these properties that would support the adjacent campsite, which is on a separate parcel entirely.
Thanks, sir. Does that answer your
Thank you for
question?
that. Well, yeah, I mean, it does to a great extent. But the more I hear, the more I begin to wonder if you can put virtually nothing, I mean, on these sites. Again, I'm just speculating, but based on what Mr. Davis has told us, it seems like this site, the only use it has is to put some kind of a bridge or whatever over the wetlands to get to the other site that is already owned. I mean, I don't know what else other than billboards then. I'm only speculating, but I just don't see a whole lot of use for these sites. Thank you.
Thank you, Denise. Does anybody else on the phone, as far as commissioners, have any questions? Nobody's coming in. Anybody else here at the desk have any more questions? If not, I will now open it up to the public. And now I ask, is there anybody else here in favor of this application? Mr. Pardee, of course, we know you're an attorney.
I thought
so
you were done with those in favor.
No, we're still in favor.
Okay.
I haven't even got started on that yet. Second time in favor of this application, would like to speak. Third time in favor of this application, would like to speak. I think I have a gentleman in the back in favor. Okay. We do have somebody on the phone. No?
If there's anyone that's online from the public that would like to speak in favor of this application, please press star 1.
Are we good, Mark?
Okay, caller whose phone number ends in 7587, you can go ahead and speak.
Yeah, this is Doug Barry from Pannoni Associates, 121 Continental Drive.
Sir, do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, sir. I just wanted to add on to what Mr. Martin said about the Del Dot Road. He's done a considerable amount of due diligence with them. He's taken a road that we consider to be a little bit unsafe, that's angled to Route 13. He's got approval to make that perpendicular. He's agreeing to pay for a portion or all of those improvements next to the road. The only thing that I wanted to add was that there have been discussions only to include provisions for a 50-foot wide right-of-way at the back of his two properties. There's been no discussions about constructing a service road through his properties or throughout other properties. So I just wanted to opine on that.
Is that all you have to say, sir?
Yes.
We'll now go anyone against. Mr. Pardee, I think you had already been to the mic, so we'll recognize you as being an attorney. You won't have to be sworn or affirmed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the record, John Pardee, and I've provided the staff with a notebook for each of you that contains a copy of our PowerPoint presentation and some supporting documents. I am here tonight. I've been asked to speak on behalf of more than 50 owners and residents in the area, and many of whom are here tonight. But in all candor, I am also one of the owners of the Asbury Square Shopping Center, and so I want to be completely candid about why I'm here on my behalf as well. As you may know, Asbury Square is located within the territorial limits of the town of Frederica, directly across SR1 from the DE Turf Sports Complex, 2 miles north of the properties before you tonight. And I'm here because I firmly believe there's a right way to do planning and development, and there's a wrong way. And my partners and I have been working on Asbury Square for more than 12 years now, since 2008. And every step along the way, we have faithfully observed and abided by all of the various codes, ordinances, rules, and regulations governing the development of real property, as established by the town of Frederica, by Kent County, and the state of Delaware, including Del Dot regulations regarding access to SR1, the State of Delaware Strategies for State Spending, the Kent County Comprehensive Plan, and Kent County's ongoing South Frederica Master Plan. In short, the owners of Asbury Square have pursued development of that project the right way, and it is simply not fair to allow other property owners or developers to pursue the same sort of approvals without abiding by the same rules and standards that Asbury Square has steadfastly observed. Rules and standards which I would respectfully submit the application before you entirely ignores. And if you'll indulge me, I'd like to go to our PowerPoint presentation and explain to you why. So I have right, if I can just nod to Chris every time I need to change a page, thank you. So we'll start with, the first slide is an aerial to give you some orientation. Oh, great, thank you. There we go. So there's the Medding property, Medding and Sons. This is the Fry Farm. This is the Legates Farm. This is the West Farm. This is the Hitchens Farm. This is the Bell property, and this is the Davis Farm. These are all farms along the edge of this property that will be affected by this application. And we're zooming in a little closer to the subject property here. The subject properties are right in this area, right here. A little closer, you can see a lot of forest land in this area. There's a blue line stream that runs from the west right through the middle of this property. It goes under SR1 and across the road. These are the properties that are owned by Ching LLC. And it's very interesting what you find here. Mr. Martin's office, the Laser One business, is located right here. He bought that property in June of 2008. In August of 2015, he bought the campground property from Fred Voschel, very colorful character in Kent County history. He paid Mr. Voschel $249,500 for that piece, according to the deeds. Then in March of 2016, Ching acquired this 20-acre parcel. And this is going to become very important to the story here in just a minute. He paid $300,000 for that property. At the time, it was owned mostly AR. There was a little sliver of industrial on it. But he paid $300,000 for that in 2016. Then in 2017, he acquired these 3 parcels that are before you tonight. And these parcels have actually been before you previously for rezoning in 2018. I'll talk about that in a minute. But interestingly, Ching bought what is now tax parcel number 44 and number 4403, the two immediately on SR1 and Cemetery Road there, from the Shirey family. But as Mr. Davis was explaining, and I'm impressed by his detective work, but the tax parcel number 67 is this sliver behind the Shirey pieces. And there is, in fact, what we like to call a ghost deed of record, because, as I'll explain to you in a minute, it was largely unknown and may still be unknown today who actually owned that property at the time. We think we know. One thing we do know is that Ching did not own it. But nevertheless, there's a deed from Ching to Ching. Then in April of 2018, Ching bought these 2 pieces. This is where he wants to put the water park, and this is where he wants to put his water tower. He didn't pay a whole lot for those, about a little under $30,000. But in the course of 2 years and 8 months, Ching has paid $763,590 to compile all of these parcels. I can't get it. There we go. Okay. So this is a really important part of the story. I remember I mentioned the 20-acre piece that he purchased in 2016. And he paid a good price for it, $300,000. So he came before this body, the RPC, on February 2nd, 2017, asking you to rezone it from mostly AR to BG. And when he was asked why, he said, well, I'd like to move my business there. My business has been growing, which I believe is true. His business was growing very well, so he wanted to relocate it to here. go from about an acre to 20 acres. And the minutes to these meetings are all in the notebooks that I've given to you. He said, "We do not have a proposal for a hotel. Mr. Martin has a business in this area, which he wishes to maintain here. The site is perfect for us. We were able to get a building big enough to house our growth and go hire other people to work with the company." He said the same thing to the levy court on February 28th. "I'm looking forward to growing my business." So everyone thought, well, that sounds like a fine idea. And the rezoning was granted. Boom, 20 acres just like that. AR to BG right on SR1. I will respectfully submit to you that that story was a ruse. That Mr. Ching or Mr. Martin knew that he was going to be compiling these properties and trying to develop them. It's our understanding that Mr. Martin has a partner somewhere in New Jersey who's been offering to buy up all these farms in this area. And several of the people who are here tonight, the Bell family, the Hitchens family, and the Davis family, or not the Davis family, the Legates family, have all been approached by Mr. Martin to buy their farms, and they've said no. Before we go on, I want to point to something in the notebook about the tax parcel 67 that Mr. Davis was asking about. And if you go to the end of tab 2 in the notebook that we gave you, you'll see that there are 2 plot plans and the deed, the ghost deed that I mentioned to you. The first plot plan is found in book 29, page 8 in the County Recorder of Deeds office. It's dated August 8th of 1991. And this is the plot plan that was recorded when Mr. and Mrs. Shirey subdivided their lands, which created the 2 parcels that Ching bought from the Shireys, okay? And you'll see on that plot plan where tax parcel 67 is now, it says lands of unknown ownership, okay? And if you go to the next plot plan, it's in book 127, page 44 in the Recorder of Deeds. It's dated February 9, 2015, and it was recorded on August 11, 2015, the very same day that Ching's deed from Fred Voschel for the campground was recorded. So it's obvious that Ching got this survey performed in connection with that settlement when he bought the campground. And what's interesting is if you look at the shaded area on that plot plan, this is Ching's plot plan. He paid to have this done. It shows the 2 Shirey pieces that I mentioned. It shows the campground, and in between, you see what is now tax parcel 67, and it says, lands reputed to be now or late of Charles Postles. So Ching knew that somebody other than him, somebody other than Shirey, and somebody other than Voschel owned this land when he got this survey done. Okay? And so what did he do in 2017 when he bought the 2 pieces on the road from Mr. and Mrs. Shirey? He did the ghost deed the same day, and it's in the record there at the end of tab 2. And you'll see there's no derivation clause. Deeds typically have a derivation clause that will say, and being the same lands that I got from so-and-so. There's no derivation clause in this deed. Instead, Ching just deeded it to himself. And perhaps hoped nobody would notice, who knows? But Mr. Davis is right. The right way to do that, if you can't figure out who owns it, is you approach the Court of Chancery and you file a quiet title action or an adverse possession action. They didn't do that.
Mr. Pardee,
Yes,
excuse
sir.
me. When you mentioned a survey, is that the Elliott survey, September 2017? Is that what you're talking about?
Yes. Yes, it's plot book 127, page 44, and it was done by Elliott.
Right. And I mean, it looks kind of like a confirmatory deed, but you make a good point. It doesn't have a derivation clause, which is a little unusual.
Well, it doesn't say it's a confirmatory deed.
No, it doesn't.
It says no title or lien search requested or performed. And I would submit to you that in 2017, when that deed was prepared, Mr. Martin knew that he didn't own that land. Somebody else did. maybe Charlie Postles. And I've talked to Charlie Postles. I don't know if he's here tonight and he'll speak. But Mr. and Mrs. Hitchens are here, and we think there's a very good chance that that sliver actually belongs to them because it was part of the farm that they got from the Postles family. That makes sense, but I'll tell you, I've ordered a title search and we're going to find out. The one thing we do know is that Ching never owned it. So it's important, as Mr. Davis said, because it's the only way to tie the rest of his properties to the campground. So let me back up here. 2018, Ching came before this very body in 2018 seeking to rezone all three of these same pieces plus the campground. He wanted to rezone all four pieces BG. And the Planning Commission recommended denial, State Planning Office recommended denial, and that application was ultimately withdrawn. So between then and now, Ching has been working on his project. And you probably saw the articles in the paper. They're in the notebook, and we'll get to those in a minute. But for the last 2 years, he's been trying to get the infrastructure in place to build his development. And he's got a plus application, which I'll show you. He's been working on getting a water tower on that piece I showed you on the west side. Right there is where the water tower would go. He's been working with the county on getting sewer capacity. And he's been working with DelDOT on road access. And I know this body's not here to talk about road access, but you need to know what's being talked about and what's being planned. I find it, frankly, impossible that Mr. Martin doesn't know anything about this when he's been talking to DelDOT and working on a traffic impact study for this area. But this is up near the Medding property. You can see Medding property's right here. And the service road shows a right-in coming into the Medding property and connecting to a service road that links to the back of the Medding property as well. And that service road goes south. It cuts across. This is Howard Joseph's property where the portable buildings are. This is the Legates farm. This is the Fry farm. And by the way, the Fry family's irrigation well is right there, so this road would go right over top of it. Cut through the Legates property. This is the West farm. Cuts through a corner of the West farm. And the West family's irrigation system is close to this as well. Goes right through the backyard of Howard Joseph's property where the portable buildings, this is where the machine shop is. This is owned by Alan McCarthy. And then you finally get down to the area where we're talking about. This is Ching's property right in here. It's already zoned commercial. And it shows the service road with a intersection here and then a right in, right out on SR1 right here. And then the service road continues down along the front of the properties that you're talking about tonight and goes back up Cicada Lane. Now, what's interesting, Mr. Martin said he didn't really know anything about that, yet the concept plan that he filed with the Plus office shows it. And this is in our, this is slide number, I'll make sure you can see it closely.
Mr. Pardee, I'm just going to tell you, you've exceeded your 15 minutes, but I'm going to let you continue on because you are representing 50 people, and without them each one having to speak, I think your presentation will shorten the hearing, and we'll probably get more out of it with this PowerPoint.
I appreciate that very much, Mr. Chairman, and I was going to ask for that. I apologize that I didn't, but I would ask all the people here in the room who would be willing to cede some of their time to me to raise their hands. So,
and I think that's the point I need to make.
Sure.
I just wanted to be on record to say why you were able to exceed your time, and I think it's good with what you're presenting.
I appreciate that, and I'll try to speed it up as much as I can. But what's interesting, this is the concept plan that Ching filed with his Plus application. And if you look at our PowerPoint slide number 13 very carefully, what you'll see, whoops, is right here is the same service road that's in DelDOT's plans. And this little phrase here says something like connection to sports complex. This is his Plus application, okay? I have other larger slides. I can maybe help you with that. There you go. So see that says future connection to off-site sports complex. And there's the road right there. It's on his very own Plus application, okay? There's his water park. And the water tower is across the street. All right, let me go to the next slide, and you'll see this is the campground. And this question came up about, what exactly is going to be on the campground site. Let me just back up and tell you what the PLUS application says. They're pressing forward with this concept that they've submitted to PLUS, showing 7 parcels with a campground, a kids' cottage, a water park, a water tower, a hotel, 4 restaurants, a convenience store, gas station, and 30,000 square feet of retail space. What is shown on the slide you're looking at now, which is slide 15, is a close-up of the campground. And you'll see it shows 35 cabins, 60 RV camper spaces, a pool, a splash house, a bathhouse, a 3-story recreational lodge. And then on the pieces that we're talking about tonight, I think this was Mrs. Karcher's question, it shows a tavern and liquor store, a camp store, related offices, and extensive parking. There's 3 parking pad sites with about 70 parking spaces. That's a lot of concrete. And then on the parcel to the north, you see the restaurant, the hotel, the convenience gas, the kids' cottage, and then the water park is north of that. So the applicant has been quoted in the paper describing this project, and they've boasted it's a $30 million project. And they plan to combine high-end cabin stays with a water park modeled after developments near Six Flags Great Adventure, a sprawling theme park in New Jersey. They want to build Wally World right here in Kent County. And I would respectfully submit to you, this is no place for Wally World. And so let me try to get to the merits that PLUS was talking about. And the first thing you'll see is PLUS says it's in level 3, what they call out of play. It's right on the front of the PLUS application. It says this area is out of play under state strategies. In the PLUS review, they told DelDOT that they expected about 5,000 new vehicle trips per day. DelDOT actually calculates 16,595 new vehicle trips per day on this site. DENREC says the project includes parcels which are almost entirely forested and upland forest cover and forested wetlands. The development footprint is sited within areas containing natural features of concern. These include excellent groundwater recharge areas and forested wetlands along a stream and upland forest. Critically, this may negatively impact the planning efforts by the Kent County in the South Frederica Area Master Plan. And that's because you've been spending 2 years developing this master plan with everything focused on generating investment and activity around the sports complex. And this would push it all 2 miles south. Connie Holland would tell you that's a horrible idea and it's going to jeopardize your plan. Look at all the forest lands in the area. These are some pictures of the site showing the forest lands. This is inside the property that you're looking at tonight. It's all heavily forested. There's extensive wetlands. If you look at these pictures, you see the water that Mr. Mills was talking about that lays in there. All kinds of wetlands, okay? Additionally, and this is important for the farmers, excellent groundwater recharge. DENREC says the project is almost completely within an excellent groundwater recharge area, which constitutes a critical area. And Mr. Davis touched on the fact that Kent County Source Water Protection Ordinance requires no more than 20% impervious surface coverage. So they have to leave 80% of this site pervious. DENREC also mentions the hydric soils that are present throughout the parcels. DENREC reviewers discourage building on hydric soils because they're an important source of water storage. The loss of this water storage function through excavation, filling, or grading of intact native hydric soils increases the probability for more frequent drainage and flooding events, will likely increase the potential for future flooding impacts while also increasing nutrient and bacterial pollutant discharge to ground and surface waters. There's your excellent recharge map, okay? And you'll see that about half of what's before you tonight is in an excellent recharge area. So is most of the campground. So is the entire 20 acres to the north. Additionally, there's the Blue Line Stream that I mentioned earlier. It comes through the Hitchens property and cuts through these parcels we're here to talk about tonight, and then across SR1. The Historic Preservation Office and the Department of Agriculture are also very much opposed to this project and this particular rezoning, because these three parcels are adjacent, immediately adjacent, and in part contain what they consider well-drained prime farmland. And the Department of Agriculture says, we believe the corridor needs to be protected and the proposed use does not fit with the surrounding protected agricultural uses in the area. Here's some of the farms. And I mentioned to them at the outset, you've got the Fry Farm is in Ag Lands Preservation. The West Farm is in Ag Lands Preservation. We'll take a look at those real quick. The Legates Farm is not in Ag Lands Preservation, but it's immediately adjacent. It's right on SR1. Get this thing to work here. It's right in front of the Fry Farm. There we go. Right there. So there's Legates, 52 acres, currently farmed by David French. The Fry Farm, 180 acres in Ag Lands Preservation. It's been farmed by that family for generations, and Jeff Fry has two sons that want to continue farming it. Stanley West Farm, 204 acres in Ag Lands Preservation. Here you've got the Hitchens Farm, 204 acres being farmed by the Blessings. And then you've got, this is Bell and Davis, and they're also in farmland. Additionally, there's a Postal's Family Cemetery right behind the 20-acre piece off of Old Cemetery Road. And if you develop all these pieces, there's a good chance you'll disturb that cemetery. Critically, this is what Commissioner Buxton campaigned on many years ago. We had a lot of arguments about it, but he was right then and he's right now. Infrastructure before development. There is not adequate infrastructure here to support this development. There's no water service. They want to put a water tower here to fix that. There's currently no sewer service, and it would require an extension of the sewer district to get that. And then this is Old Cemetery Road, a typical county road with no shoulders, and it's just simply inadequate. If Ching wants to develop this site, what he should do, instead of building a service road from the Medding property 2 miles south that taxpayers would have to pay for, is he should do what every other developer has to do. He should do what I had to do. I had to go to the neighbors and buy easements to widen Frederica Road. And I had to pay them good money for it. And I'm gonna have to get my access off of Frederica Road, and I'm gonna have to pay more than $1 million to fix it, so it will be safe. That's what Ching should do if he wants to develop here. He should fix Cemetery Road. So I'm wrapping up here, Mr. Chairman, I promise. Critical point, and these are borne out in both the staff comments and the plus comments. This is not an area indicated for economic development or additional commercial land on any of the comp plan maps. And through the comprehensive, this is a really important quote right here. Through the comprehensive planning process, the state and county agreed that development would be concentrated in the South Frederica area to support the turf, and that a master plan would be developed to address environmental and infrastructure issues. This project will negatively impact the viability of the master plan area, and as such, it undermines the Kent County Comprehensive Plan and the master plan currently underway. For the record, I'll mention that it also fails to satisfy any of the legal criteria for a rezoning or a comp plan amendment. The staff report nails that to a T. And in conclusion, I would just reiterate, this area is out of play under state strategies. It's full of mature forest lands and extensive wetlands, a blue line stream, an excellent recharge area. It conflicts with nearby agricultural activities. It conflicts with the postal cemetery. There's a lack of adequate infrastructure, road, sewer, and water. It's contrary to the comprehensive plan, contrary to the South Frederica master plan. It fails to satisfy the legal criteria for a rezoning, and the neighboring property owners unanimously oppose. I've talked to every one of them, and they're all here, a lot of them are here tonight, And at this point, Mr. Chairman, I would ask those neighbors, property owners, and residents in the area who are opposed to please stand up and be recognized. Thank you. And lastly, Mr. French gave me a list of another 44 neighbors who are opposed. I'll give that to the staff. It's not in the notebook, but I'll submit this for the record, and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
I thank you, Mr. Pardee. As always, a great presentation. And I would ask that when I open it up for other people to talk, that hopefully the ones that you represent will not come to the mic. I think you understand that.
Yeah, I will say that now, Mr. Chairman, for the benefit of everyone here. If you don't have anything to add, if it's something I already covered, then there's no need for you to come forward. But if you do have something to add, certainly feel free to come forward and speak. I think they'd like to hear from at least a couple property owners.
Mr. Pardee, I think Mr. Mills has a question.
Sure.
Mr. Pardee, appreciate you for your statements that you made, and it's certainly definitely what I had on my mind. But there is one thing I would ask. I think you should strike from the record is the price that he paid for the property and what he wants to sell it for, because every person, no matter who it is, got a right to buy. It's between the seller and the buyer. They got a right to buy and sell for whatever they want. And I think that part that you brought up about what he paid for the properties should be struck from the record. And the other question is there's a lot of legalities in here about the properties that really we can't deal with.
Understand, and you make a good point. I will tell you that the prices were a matter of public record from the deed records, but I appreciate what you've said, and so I would ask that that be stricken from my presentation, and you'll not hear those numbers from me next time.
Thanks, sir. Does any other commissioners have any questions, or the ones on the phone for Mr. Pardee? Seeing none, I thank you, sir.
Thank you.
And I will still open it up. We have a couple more times to ask. Is there anybody else here that would like to add to anything to the opposition presentation? Anyone else here? I have a gentleman in the back. Please come forward. Give your name, your address, and you'll either be sworn or affirmed.
My name's Howard Joseph. Address 3235 Bay Road, Milford.
Mr. Joseph, do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, sir?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
I'd like to read just a short description, and then if I have permission to give a copy to each one of the commissioners here tonight. In 1998, Portable Buildings bought the old Mohawk Electric property that had sat empty for years. It was upgraded to Kent County specifications and has since manufactured more than 20,000 buildings, while hiring dozens of local carpenters, drivers, and painters. Our jobs depend on Portable Buildings staying in business. We are asking you not to approve this rezoning. And what I did is to give this to most of our employees, told them the situation, and asked them if they were in favor of this not being rezoned to put their signature on here. So if it's okay, can I give a copy to each person?
You can give it to staff and they'll make copies for us or whatever has to be done. Wait right there a minute, sir. Does any commissioners have any questions for this gentleman? I thank you again. Appreciate it. Is there anyone else here that's in opposition to this and would like to make a presentation? Okay, sir, come on up to the microphone. Give us your name, your address, and you'll either be sworn or affirmed.
My name is Larry Legates, 2974 Bay Road, Milford.
Mr. Legates, do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, sir?
I do.
Thank you.
As previously noted, if that road is put through, and I know the road is outside of the area we're talking about, but it was brought up, so this might be the time to mention it, is that it would chop my property, or that parcel at least, into 3 pieces. The one piece would still be farmable with the equipment that they use, but the other 2 pieces, I don't know, I guess I could farm it with my garden tractor. I mean, it would just chop it up into 3 small pieces. The other concern is the water tower is on the parcel just south of my property also. And I had heard that, I think tonight, that besides servicing the water park, I think part of the agreement was that it was going to help somehow put a pipeline back to Frederica to help supplement their water problems. And the question would be, it might lower the water table I assume they're going to put a well in, and what's it going to do with the water table? Because I know there's irrigation nearby, and I don't know what that does, but who knows? We might have to put in new wells, and if that's the case, who's going to pay for our new wells? We've been here almost 50 years, and through all the dry seasons and everything, our well has never gone dry. So if that happens, who's going to put in a new well for me? Along with other neighbors. So that's really the points I needed to make tonight.
I thank you, Mr. Legates. That's out of the concept of this particular zoning, but I understand your need and your questions.
Well, these points were brought up tonight, so I
Very
did
good.
want to.
Yes. Anybody here have any question for Mr. Legates or on the phone? Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Is there anyone else here that's opposed to this rezoning and would like to speak? Seeing none, I
If
will
there's
close.
anyone that's on the telephone and would like to speak in opposition, press star 1. Okay, caller with number ending in 4017, you may speak.
My name is William Oliver. I live at 797 Cicada Lane. I would just like to address
Sir,
one
excuse me.
issue.
Hold on.
Hold on a minute,
Hold
sir.
on. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, sir?
Yes, I do.
Proceed.
It was touched on by one of your commissioners, and I apologize. I know it's not being discussed tonight, but I appeared before this committee in 2017 when the proposal was withdrawn, and I was immediately approached by Mr. Martin and his engineers and was advised that the access to the campground would come off a cemetery road, and now I hear there's a ghost title and all that. I think there's too many questions. I implore you all to oppose this recommendation.
I thank you, sir. Anybody have any questions for this individual? Thank you for your comments. Seeing nobody else in the audience, and I assume nobody else on the phone, this application will proceed next week. I do thank you all for coming and showing an interest. It's nice to see people when they're interested in the land around them, whether it be for or against, and I thank you each and every one. We'll wait a minute till it gets quiet in here. I would ask if you're going to have conversations that you exit the room unless you want to sit and hear the other things that are going to happen, please. Our third application tonight, plan number and title is SL-20-02 Knollwood. Location is located on the northwest side of Irish Hill Road, County Road 31, at the northwest corner of the intersection with Peachtree Run, County Road 105, northwest of Magnolia. Owner applicant is Schiff Farms Incorporated, care of Dr. James W. Schiff, 16054 South DuPont Highway, Harrington, Delaware 19952. Engineer, Mr. Philip Tolliver, P.E., Morrison Ritchie Associates, Incorporated, 18 Bolden Circle, Suite 36, Newcastle, Delaware, 19720. Present zoning district, AC, Agriculture Conservation, Levy Court District, 5th, Mr. Sweeney. School District, Caesar Rodney. Fire District, Station 48, Felton. Size of site, 146.26 plus or minus acres. Number of proposed lots, 289 single-family lots. Active open space, 3.27 acres. Passive open space, 45.01 acres plus or minus. Stormwater management, 8.3 acres plus or minus. Wetlands area, 3.13 acres plus or minus. Total acres within the woodlands, 15.0 acres, 12.9 acres in the woodland preservation. Average lot acreage, 11,493 square feet or 0.26 acres. Minimum lot area, 10,000 square feet or 0.23 acres. Maximum lot area, 29,389 square feet or 0.67 acres. Maximum impervious coverage, 35%. Relation to the growth zone inside, density, 1.98 units per acre. Streets, public, to be constructed according to Delaware Division of Highway specifications. Water, public, Tidewater Utilities. Sewer, public, Kent County Sewer District 1. Is there somebody either in the audience or on the phone to represent this application? Well, there is a face we haven't seen lately. Mr. Tolliver, we welcome you.
Yeah. Good evening.
I guess you have to be sworn or affirmed.
Tolliver, state your address, please.
Phil Tolliver with Morrison Ritchie Associates, 18 Bolden Circle, Newcastle, Delaware.
Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, sir?
I do.
Thank you.
Well, do we get to see that contour print like we always see for the entrances?
Hopefully this is a much easier application to consider than the prior one.
Oh, very good. Thank you.
I don't know if anybody hates these masks as much as I do, but we'll do our best here. Thanks for having this meeting, by the way, and it's a delight to see everybody again. The commissioners on the telephone also. Good evening to you all as well. Here to represent the Schiff family, and I guess before we get into the project, it probably would make sense to just give a brief historical overview of why we're here, because this is the third time you all have seen this application. It has not changed. It was approved back in 2012. This preliminary plan was approved back in 2012, and back then the economy wasn't doing so great. So the client, Dr. Schiff, put the job on hold back then, and the preliminary plan expired. Several years transpired, and we made another presentation to you all with the same exact plan back in September 2018. And again, same plan, received approval of the preliminary plan, and started getting at it in terms of the engineering. So we've been working on the engineering for 2 years now, and as you know, back in March, COVID struck, and that created a lot of delays and conditions that were way outside of everybody's control. If it weren't for the COVID situation, we probably wouldn't even be here tonight, because we're very close to getting approval on all of the engineering plans as we stand here tonight. We've already gotten approval from the fire marshal for the engineering. We've already gotten conditional approval from Kent County DPW for the sewer, KCD for the stormwater management and sediment control plans. We've submitted the plans. We've gotten comments back. They were very minor. We're addressing the comments. We're in the process of resubmitting those back for approval as well. DelDOT, we've submitted all of the entrance plans and the internal subdivision street plans, the engineering plans, if you will, to DelDOT. And we're in the process of working with them to address comments and get those back in for review and approval as well. So we're close. And again, if it weren't for the unfortunate situation with the pandemic back in March, when things got shut down, we probably would have been done by now and not even have needed this additional approval. The preliminary plans in Kent County are only good for 18 months with a 1 year, with a one-time 6-month extension. So that gets you 2 years. So it just expired last month. So like I said, we're almost ready to record the plats, but we just need another, unfortunately, the plan expired, ran out, and we just need this reapproved to allow us to wrap up the last items, cross the Ts, dot the Is, and get the plats recorded. Nothing has changed in Kent County's code that I'm aware of that would impact this project. So, and again, nothing's changed in the plan. As Commissioner Jester has said, the roads are public, sidewalk on both sides, centrally located community area right in the middle there, public water and sewer, and we have gone through the staff recommendations and conditions, and we agree with, they've recommended approval for the third time really, but we do agree with and can meet all of their requirements and the recommendations as well, with the caveat that there is one recommendation I wanted to talk about, which we also talked about 2 years ago, as you'll recall, and it was recommendation 1B on page 6. And we talked about this 2 years ago, and there was a recommendation for these little, see these open space strips between these lots here and here, and there's some other open space areas in here. We're trying to link common open space areas together, and there was a recommendation to install fences, a split rail fence parallel to these lot lines. We didn't want to do a fence because it's more maintenance. They tend to, it's harder to mow around the fence and weeds grow up underneath the fence. So 2 years ago, and I think Sarah agreed if I'm not mistaken, and the Planning Commission agreed as well, we agreed to do natural landscaping to demarcate where those buffer lines would be located. So we would just, like to do the same thing that we talked about 2 years ago, and that's demarcate these open space strips with natural vegetation, trees, shrubs, and a combination thereof, which Kent County would have to, review the final landscape plan and approve that. The state has indicated that it's in compliance with the comprehensive plan. It's a low density project. We're not asking for any conditional uses or anything, so it's a by right permitted use application. Trying to think if there's anything else here.
Before you proceed, Sarah, would you like to comment on the easements around the drainage areas? What he said, and you agree to that?
Oh, do you mean the demarcating the open spaces?
That's correct.
Right. Yeah, as long as it's reflected on the landscape plan and it's a clear demarcation so people don't sort of let their yards bleed into it, we don't have an objection to that.
Very good. I just wanted that for public record.
Sure. So the utilities. So there's an existing water line out here owned by Tidewater. Kent County also actually built a sewer line right here on the property to serve this property. So the levee court's already included this in the sewer district. They've factored in capacity for this project. In fact, there's already sewer line and sewer manholes built on the property right here on the corner. So the infrastructure is there, it's code compliant, and I hated to come back tonight, but we just couldn't get this thing done with a COVID thing, and ran out of time on the preliminary plan clock, so to speak. So just respectfully ask for reapproval, and that will be it.
Okay, before I open it up to the other commissioners, I have a couple questions. The Peachtree Run Relocation Road, is that on the parcel that you've got?
Yeah, so
on the east side, what's happening with that?
Yep. So one of the requirements from DelDOT for Knollwood is to, this right here, Peachtree Run Road, if you go out there on Peachtree Run, there's a Jersey wall or a barricade right here. And as part of the Woodfield subdivision, this road was started, but it was never actually completed, and it was never built in accordance with DelDOT standards the way that it should have been built. So Dr. Schiff has to basically reconstruct this and tie it back in with a Peachtree Run Road, and there's other additional shoulder widening and improvements that Jim's got to do, Jim Schiff has to do here for Peachtree Run to take Peachtree here, extend it here, and align it and make it a nice four-way intersection.
So what you're saying, it will eventually be opened?
I'm sorry?
It will eventually be opened?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. It will eventually be open. That's correct.
And the only other question I got is out on Irish Hill Road, the two impact points that you have for the development, is DelDOT requiring you to have left turn lanes, widen the road with shoulders and all? I didn't see much on the drawing here depicting that.
Yes, they are. We have to do a left turn entrance at both intersections. So here's going to have a dedicated left turn. Here's going to have a dedicated left turn. Multimodal path along the entire frontage. Accel, decel lanes, shoulders, and widening.
Yeah, your plan wasn't very clear on that. I just wanted to make sure that that was in the works also. I'm going to open it up to the other commissioners. I think Mr. Mills has a question for you.
Yeah, I thank you for your application here, and it's a good-looking plan here. But I'm in the school bus contractor business too, and I have read the code, and you are following the code of what it calls for bus stops. Down at Irish Hill Road, on both of those places there, you got, if you look on the big map, you can see it. You can't see it here, but they got bus stops. And apparently they're leading more towards DART buses than they are to school buses. Now what I would like to see and recommend to be done, it's not going to cost anything to change the development for this, but that driveway going in is a horseshoe drive. You go in one way and come out the other. If you would designate the area at the top of the horseshoe there, where there's a building up there, I see parking lot there. Designate that as a school bus stop. So the buses can go off that Irish Hill. It's getting hard to pick up kids and deliver kids now. And Irish Hill Road and I travel that road, is a very congested road. And I think if you would just designate that area up there for pickup and delivery for kids, they go in one way and out the other road. And I don't think that would be any much of a concern. Now, why I say should we designate the area is the fact it would save the transportation supervisors a lot of headache, because they won't have the parents call and say, I want my kid picked up over on street such and such way in the back. It's designated on the map, and when they buy that house in that area, in that development, they know those kids have got to be picked up at that one particular spot. I think the code the code here should be revised for all developments in the future to designate a school bus stop inside of the development and provide for buses to either turn around or in and out. And this one here has got a perfect spot for going in and coming right back out.
Commissioner Mills, I couldn't agree with you more. And I think that's a fine idea. As long as the Cesar Rodney School District is okay with that, that's exactly what we'll do. In fact, that would be my preference, just like you, is to put it right there. That's where it makes sense.
You're looking at that. Up at the top.
Right here
of
in
that,
the centrally located area where the pavilion is, right here.
Yeah, up at the top of that where that pavilion is.
Yes, sir.
Very good suggestion. Any other commissioners have any questions for Mr. Tolliver?
I'd like to comment on what Mr. Mills said. Okay.
Peterman?
Sir, I agree with Mr. Mills 100%. You have kindergarten kids up to 12th grade, through 12th grade. The kindergarten kids, I don't know if some of those parents would go work and leave their neighbor watch the kids there, but if those kids had to go all the way to the end of that development to get a bus, who's going to watch the kids? And if the parents are going to take them down there in a car and sit there, there's a development down by the railroad tracks in Camden that has that situation. And when I go by there in the morning, man, there's like 10, 15 cars there. They just about call it the demolition derby when they're trying to get out, and some dumps their kids off and some watching other people's kids. Some parents are standing there. It's very dangerous. I'd appreciate very much you listen to Mr. Mills on that.
Yeah, I think he's already agreed.
I
No,
Very
all great
important to me that
ideas.
you agree.
Strongly agree with everything everybody's saying.
Any other commissioners sitting around the table or online have called in? Do they have any questions about Knollwood? Mrs. Karcher, Mr. Servon, or Mr. Spatarelli?
I have no questions.
Seeing none, I thank
I
you
have
for
no
your presentation. It's always a pleasure to have you at the microphone. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else here is in favor of this application, this development, would like to speak? Third and final call. Anybody else here in favor? We'll now go over to the opposition. Is there anybody here that opposes this development? Anybody opposes? Please come on up to the microphone. Give your name, your address, and you can either be sworn or affirmed.
Hi, my name is Dr. Jason Bonner, 7 Wood Duck Lane, Camden, Delaware, 19934.
Sir, do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm here on behalf of the Cesar Bunny School District. Again, my name is Dr. Jason Bonner. I'm the supervisor of transportation for the Cesar Bunny School District. I want to just bring a point, not so much as a opposition, but more of a point of a clarification. Again, dealing with the public school transportation. We had a similar instance in the reserves of Chestnut Ridge, where the stop was initially on Irish Hill Road, similar in nature to the request here, but was quickly moved interior. I want to address Delaware State Code Title 14, Section 1150 states very clearly that a bus stop has to be within a half mile of the residence. Otherwise, we would be out of compliance. I don't see a scale here, but in conjunction with the request earlier, and I think everyone agrees, if we move the stop to an interior stop, much like we did with the reserves at Chestnut Ridge, I would be in full compliance with state and local regulations. And also the non-tangible piece that it's just safer for kids. The traffic in interior stops is far less than the traffic we would exhibit or we experience on Irish Hill Road. So again, just that being asked, and if there's no objections, I would like just to make a point that we have that stop moved interior.
We certainly appreciate your support and thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Anybody here opposed to this particular development? Opposed? Please come up, give your name and address, and be either sworn or affirmed.
I'm much shorter than most people tonight. I'm Jennifer Lindsay. My address is 1596 Irish Hill Road. My address actually...
Excuse me. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Proceed.
Okay. So if you look at this map here, and you look at the second entry into the community, my home is actually on this, this side of Irish Hill Road, and it's that little house right there that has the driveway that comes up. And then we actually have a U-shaped driveway, so it's actually the next entrance too. I was at the last meeting, which was about 2 years ago. We brought up concerns about two things: the stormwater, only because, as you know, in that area, the water table is so high. Now that they're actually building in the Pinehurst area, with the Pinehurst community, and they're actually building behind us and on this side of my home as well. We've never really had a huge amount of flooding. Kent County did something with the pipe. There's a pipe that it's in front of my house. So in front of my house is a drainage ditch, which is across the street, obviously, from the community. And there is a culvert pipe that actually goes from my side of Irish Hill to the proposed property. And Kent County, I don't know what they did with it, but they did something with it within the last year. And we had a major storm, and it was the first time that our property actually flooded in 15 years of owning the property. So my concern is with the drainage, that particular area, when 2 years ago they had mentioned about the pond, I don't think, it does not look the same to me, because I believe that the pond was further over, but I could be wrong on that because I did not actually have a copy. But the concern was that area that is in front of my house consistently consistently every year at some point during the year when we have a large storm is just standing water. If you have a large snowstorm, when the snow melts, you have standing water. So that area is actually the density of houses is actually in that area. So my concerns for this property, it's not really an opposition, it's more of a concern, is the stormwater management, the ability to regulate the water on the road with the additions of those houses there. You said that they have already been addressed. I have been at every meeting that for this property that I have been notified of, or that we've received notice for. And then the only other thing is the last time I was here, they mentioned possibly doing berms out front, just as they did with the community down the street. Now I do not see the berms. Now I actually see more trees and forested. So really honestly, my concerns are more with the stormwater, the entrances, because it's going to bring a lot more traffic on that road. So as far as getting in and out of the community, and especially since it's right across from my property, and my end, it's pretty close to my entrances. I was concerned with the turn lanes, making sure there was turn lanes there. Is there a way for my husband and myself to see more of what you guys are doing in reference to turn lanes for trafficking and in reference to the stormwater management? Those are my concerns, and that's because, like I said, the standing water when it rains, it's only been since really the community behind us, Pinehurst, since it's been building up, that we're getting more and more standing water on our property. And again, since they did whatever they did with the culvert pipe in the road, we had an issue with that as well. So
I think we can probably get the engineer back up in a minute, but that is a natural low area over there. I actually knew the farmers 20 years ago that farmed that, and it's just been consistently. And I think with the stormwater, like they're going to do it, they're going to address that area and make it much better than it naturally is by retaining the water. But I'd like to ask Mr. Tolliver, maybe you could address the part about the landscaping, whether it's berms or just trees out front. And I guess he has to use the same mic. That's the only ones up there. If you'll back off a little bit,
yep,
ma'am, please.
Absolutely. And one more quick, as you think about that, one more quick thing is our property, since these other properties are going up, they're doing away with the tax ditches. The actual drainage ditches. So our property does have that drainage ditch. And so that's one other thing I noticed, is that the drainage ditch is becoming more and more full as the other properties continue to expand, which we, again, even with Pinehurst, we were at that meeting, we addressed the same thing, but we're actually seeing now, as these properties are being built around us, there is an issue with the stormwater. So.
And I think most of those ditches are actually lateral ditches. There's no tax ditches in your area that I'm aware of. They are just lateral ditches maintained by DelDOT and all like that take it down to the blue line streams to get rid of the water. But I'll let Mr. Tolliver come up and address what you talked about. I think the turn lanes are going to look like what's on the road out there for the actual development on the south side. Is that what you're matching up, Mr. Tolliver? And explain to her about the landscaping.
You bet, sure. So I guess three issues. I'll talk about the entrances and the left turn lanes and the berms and then the stormwater. So the entrance, the left turn lanes on Irish Hill Road would be very much akin to Chestnut Ridge. If you just go on the other side of Peachtree Run, you'll see Chestnut Ridge. Very nice, safe left turn lanes, wider shoulders and wider through lanes. Hit the Save As button and plop it right there, and that's what that's going to look like. Yeah, so you won't have, you're over here, right, ma'am? In this area?
Yes, that is my home. And then so you have two different driveways. You have that one and you have the one right next to it.
Uh-huh. Yep. Yep. Yeah, right here. Gotcha. Yeah, the left turn lane would actually be away from your property this way. This right here would be kind of a transition zone. The left turn movement would be traveling eastbound on Irish Hill Road, wanting to take a left turn into the subdivision, and the conflicting movement would be going in a westerly direction. Right. Now, as far as the berms go, yes, there would be a combination of some kind of berm and then deciduous trees and evergreens planted in the open space area. The open space area here is not quite as large as Chestnut Ridge is, but it's still pretty decent. So we're going to be able to put some nice landscaping and do something in here in terms of berming and landscaping. That's always been the case. That's still going to be the case moving forward. From a stormwater management perspective, I don't even know if I'd call this a pond. I think I'd call this thing a lake. It's about 8 acres in size. It's twice as deep as what it really needs to be. We wanted that so that it would be a nice freshwater pond and potentially stock it with fish and put some fountains in it. What we like to do is make these things not so much as a utility, a stormwater management utility. We like to kind of integrate them seamlessly into the community to make them an amenities feature. And so that's what we're proposing here. Additionally, it's not showing up on this rendering, but there's also another facility that's located over in this area. Not nearly as big as this one, but there's another second facility that's tucked away right in here. Not the funny thing, but one of the things to consider when you're talking about stormwater management, in the summer months when you have corn or you have crops or what have you, and it's vegetated, these fields are vegetated, that's great. It rains and the vegetation, it does its thing, it soaks up the rain and the precipitation. As soon as those crops are harvested and you have barren soil or the fields are setting fallow, the rainwater gushes off of those fields, those farm fields, uncontrolled. That's just the way farming activity is. So as things stand today, right now, before this site is developed, you may experience, probably are experiencing, some localized flooding that'll last for a little while, and then as the rain stops and subsides, it goes away. When the project develops and we actually put the stormwater controls in place, less water will be leaving the site in a peak condition than you're seeing now. So there's going to be a hydraulic control structure controlling the rate that the water leaves here and a hydraulic control structure over here, both of which would heavily regulate the amount of water leaving the site during a 2, 10, and 100-year storm event. I don't know what the exact elevation of your property is. There's one ditch that basically, there's a sizable ditch that controls basically all of the drainage in this area. And so
I think all the questions have been answered.
Okay.
If you'd like to talk to him after the meeting, that would certainly be more appropriate. And do it after the meeting instead of back and forth. And once again, Mr. Tolliver, I thank you for answering those questions.
Thank you.
Seeing nobody else against in the audience, is there anybody on the phone or on the phone at all that's against this application?
Please press star 1 if you would like to be recognized. Caller whose number ends in 2390, you may speak.
This is Robert Apito from the Woodfield Development, 17 Misty Meadow Drive.
Sir, do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Proceed, please.
Thank you. This is not in opposition to the development. This is more of a concern. Woodfield has sent a letter dated September 28th through Director Kiefer, and basically it was the same information we submitted 2 years ago, and I just want to briefly mention the 6 PowerPoint pieces that we were concerned with. This is more of a traffic and a quality of life situation. We're concerned with the child safety from multiple vehicles entering into Woodfield from Knollwood. We're very concerned with construction traffic or possible exhaust fumes, any litter and trash from the increased traffic, the decrease in property values, and a quality of life issue. So we were certainly hoping that the people in Knollwood would like to have some discussions with Woodfield through the property management company to see how we can best help the people on both sides of the aisle with the traffic that is going to increase through both developments, not only from Knollwood into Woodfield, but from Woodfield into Knollwood. And thank you very much.
I appreciate your comments and thank you for your statements. Anybody have any questions for this gentleman? Thank you again, sir. Seeing nobody else on the phone lines or nothing, then Knollwood will be taken care of next week. Thank you all for attending. Now we go down to our 4th application. Gosh, 4th application in 2 hours, so I guess we'll get through this. LC 20-10 Child Care Facilities, an ordinance to amend Kent County Code Volume 2, Chapter 205 Zoning, as amended by revising Article 13 BG, General Business District, subsection 205-169. Permitted uses, Article 13 BG, General Business District, subsection 205-170, conditional uses, and Article 21, conditional uses, subsection 205-365, table of condition uses in order to permit child care facilities by right in the BG General Business Zoning District. Sarah?
I think you summed it up, Mr. Chairman. The ordinance very simply, instead of daycare centers being a conditional use in the BG zoning district, they'll be permitted by right. That is all. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Anybody have any questions about the ordinance or the reason for it? Anybody on the phone? Any commissioners? Anybody else here in favor of this ordinance? Anybody else here in favor? Anybody opposed to this ordinance? Anybody at all? Seeing no one, then this ordinance will be addressed next week. Down to public comment. I don't see any here in the building. Is there anybody online with public comment? Seeing none, bound to commissioner comments. Any online or in the building? No one? Any other business to bring before the commission? And I certainly thank you all for your patience tonight and what you said about the different things. I think it was very great that we indulged like we did.
Make a motion, we adjourn?
Yeah, now move for adjournment. I got a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion second. Call the commission.
Mr. Peterman?
Yes.
Mr. Servon?
Yes.
Mrs. Karcher?
Yes.
Mr. Mills?
Yes.
Mr. Spanarelli?
Yes.
Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. Jester?
Yes. This meeting is adjourned.